So we do have a center punch, but apparently both of us are too lazy to get it. Hello again, all of my YouTube people. It is Red Rider here with you all, as you know, in this dirty shop working on the Dyna, because what else would I be doing on a day like today? So we are going to make a couple aluminum blocks for the speedo cable. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here in a moment, and then I'll just show you a couple of the aluminum blocks on my shovel head that we're going to be making ones kind of similar to that to use on the Dyna for this speedo cable. As you can see here, the speedo cable is way longer than it needs to be. So we're gonna be just, making a couple blocks to deal with that. I just don't want to buy a new speedo cable. I don't want to wait for it. I don't want to spend the money. I just want to get done and whatever, right? So I'll just go over to shovelhead here for a minute and show you guys the blocks on that. We will be making a couple blocks kind of similar to the ones here. I've got these like all over the place on here, just kind of holding on the oil line secure. The ones we will be making for the Dyna will be similar to those, and yeah, it'll just help with holding that speedo cable up and out of the way so that it's not just draping down so far. So my dad is helping with that. Now he's just making a scribe mark in this piece of aluminum plate. So a good tip too, guys, if you're using like a metal ruler on a piece of metal to like kind of to get yourself a straight line, if you're scribing a line, then to help the ruler or prevent the ruler from sliding around too much on your metal, then put a piece of electrical tape on the back of it there and then just trim it off to whatever size you need. But that gives you just a little more grip while you're working with it, so you don't have to worry about it sliding all over the place as you run your scribe along the edge of it. All right, so he's got the outside line scribed here. So the reason why I say that the outside line is because that's going to be cut. This extra bit of aluminum here is going to be cut off, and this is going to be the piece we end up working with. So that'll be the width of the block in total. And now he's just going to do a center line down what would be the block, the usable piece of aluminum here, and that's going to be what is going to be used to center the holes that we're going to be drilling, one for the throttle, one for the speedo cable, sorry, and then one for one of the brake lines, for the front brake line there too. So he's just going to scribe that center line, and it's going to help us get these holes perfectly centered in this block. Now that the center line is scribed, we'll be able to drill our holes, and then we'll cut off the extra material, and then we'll drill some more holes here, which will be the actual mounting holes in a way. So kind of like the way that the blocks on my shovel head are, like I was showing you guys, they're all made up of two pieces. So you got a back piece and then a front piece. All right, now we're just marking out the holes that we will be drilling for the lines to go through with our handy dandy center punch. That's one thing that's nice about snap-on tools, because we had a center punch like this that had been around for probably like almost as long as me in my dad's shop, and it wore out, but I just got to catch the snap-on truck driving by, and they replace their tools for free, right? So it's a lifetime warranty. I love Snap-on. This doesn't say Snap-on on it though. Oh wait, oh, it's Blue Point, which is a brand of Snap-on. It's always important, which I'm sure a lot of you already know, but for anyone who doesn't, it's important to drill pilot holes before you just start going crazy with a larger drill if your hole's gonna have to be bigger. Yeah, so obviously we did measure the cables first, so we got some of those linear calipers and just used them to just measure the diameter of the cables so that we can make sure to drill the holes the same size diameter so that we don't end up having just a big sloppy hole with the cable flopping around in there. And then the last two smaller holes. And then after we've got this drilled, be ready to cut that section off of the block and then take some measurements for the mounting holes that we're gonna need to put in the side of it there. Okay guys, so we are just cutting this thing in the bandsaw now. We screwed up the first holes that we did, just cleaning them out a little bit, ended up making them too big. So we redid the whole thing on the other side of the aluminum block that we were using, and I just want to show you guys how we have this set up in the bandsaw, because our bandsaw isn't perfectly square, so the blade's kind of crooked in there like this, and the table's not square to the blade and all these other things. So to make sure that we get this cut perfectly straight, we've got it set up here to just kind of help with that. So I'm just going to show you guys how we got this. So we've got this straight piece of aluminum bar here. And then what we've done is we used our straight edge here. And what we did is we fit that in between the blade and the block here and got that straight with the blade. And as you can see how far out our bandsaw is from square. Because look at how small that space is here compared to the one at the back. So now we've got it clamped on here with a couple C-clamps, and that way we have this straight, clean edge to run our block along as we cut it, and that will just ensure that our cut on this line ends up being straight. There we go, nice straight piece. So we're halfway there. Now that we've got this piece cut off, we are measuring, or well, my dad is measuring where we are going to be drilling the holes in the side of it here for the mounting fasteners. Now we've got the holes marked out where we want them to be on the block here, and he did the same method on the edge here as he did on the face of the block, where he just marked out a center line along the length of the block here, and then used that center line to mark out the holes. So now the holes will be centered in the width of the block here, and also centered between the two holes on the face of the block already. So now we're just gonna drill these out. We just paused production here for a minute so that I can explain to you guys exactly what we're doing. I'm going to show you on the piece that we screwed up a little bit on. So this section here now is what we're working with in the drill press right now, this top bit here. So the holes we drilled, we've got our marks made out for the mounting holes that we're drilling on the edge here now. So we drilled the first hole, and we're going to do 3 separate holes. So we're going to do the smallest hole is going to be for the size that we need for the tap to cut our threads in the block here. But we only want 1/2 of the block when it's finished to actually be threaded. So this whole thing is going to be cut in half, right down the center of all these holes here. And then one half of the block will be threaded so that we can tighten it up as we need it to be, and then this half of the block will not be threaded. So I'm just going to show you guys what we're going to use to do this and explain to you as best I can how we're going to do it, and then I'll show you us doing it. So we've got all 3 of our drill bits here. Like, this is the smallest of them all, as you can see, and this is the one that we are using to cut the threads. So this will be the size we need to tap the holes. We've already drilled through the block all the way with this drill. The next size is going to be to fit the bolt through the half that will not be threaded. Bottom half of the block will be threaded, top half will not be threaded. And then this bit, we are just going to be drilling through just enough to be able to countersink the head of the bolt. When it is finished, it'll end up looking like the blocks that are on my shovel head holding all the oil lines and stuff. We want to drill all of our holes first before we cut this block in half. And then that way we know everything is where we want it to be. All right, we've got our next sized drill bit in here for the next size up hole that we're going to be doing, or that we are doing. And we also have the drill press set to a maximum depth so that we are sure not to go any deeper with this hole than what we want it to be, because like I said, we only want this hole to go through the first half of the block. Now we will tap the holes. As you can see, the tap fits pretty loose. Like, obviously there would not be enough material there to tap a thread in this top hole now, but the first hole that we drilled, the smaller hole, that's still that size on the bottom of the block here. So that is the proper size to have enough material to be able to tap a good enough thread. So we're just tapping the second hole here now, and for anyone who doesn't know already, when you are tapping aluminum, it is especially important to make sure you keep your tap clean, because aluminum is so soft, it'll easily bind up your tap in the hole that you're tapping, and then you could end up breaking your tap off in the hole, which would then just kind of ruin the part that you're working on. And you know, nobody wants to do that, because that's just a big pain in the butt. So since we don't have proper tapping solution, we're using WD-40 because it's still pretty thin, and it is, I know it's not technically a lubricant, it's water displacement, but it lubricates enough for what we need it for. Yeah, next step will be to drill the biggest sized hole, where we're just gonna have the bolts be able to countersink into the block. Now this is gonna be the final hole that we end up having to drill. My dad is just setting up the drill press so that we don't end up making that hole too deep. So these are the blocks just roughly cut, and I left one of them apart here just so I could show you guys it. So we cut down the center of the holes there, and now you can see why we only wanted one half of that block to be threaded. So this is the threaded half here, and then this is the non-threaded half. So this will be like the inside of the block or the clamp, and then this will be the outside. And this one we have together here with one of the bolts that we just cut to be proper length. And as you can see, it's countersunk nicely into that outside block. And then I will just have to do a bit of cleaning up on these with the belt sander and stuff. And then we are almost done with it, and should be just about ready to go on the bike after that. Okay, just getting ready to do the belt sanding on these blocks now, getting them all cleaned up. And I just wanted to show you guys how we get a couple identical looking pieces. We've got these just clamped on to the drill bits that we used for drilling the two different sized holes. And that way it is handy because then we have a handle, no pun intended. But yeah, so we've got a handle then to hold on to while we belt sand these tiny pieces. But not only that, it also will make it so that these end up being cleaned up pretty much identical to each other. So they will be two identical looking clamps by the time they are done. So we are just gonna go do that and be right back. All right, so the first process for the belt sanding is done. We've got it all nice and rounded off, so it looks pretty good. Next thing we did, we took it off of our little handles that we had there, and now we'll just clean up like the sharp edges off of the corners a bit. That'll be the second step in the belt sanding process. Yeah, and we are almost done. And those are the finished pieces right there, other than a little bit of polishing that I might do if I decide to get that fancy with it. But as you can see, they work really well for constraining that speedo cable, and they look good. So I will eventually end up replacing that speedo cable because it is way too long, but right now I'm not worried about it, and those blocks will still be used even if the speedo cable were the proper length. I would still be using those blocks to just kind of keep it all contained to the bike. And yeah, anyway guys, that's it. Yeah, so that's all finished up and it looks good. Almost too good for the crash bike, but that's okay. And those parts are not very hard to make at all. Like my dad used to make these all the time with just a hacksaw before we had a bandsaw. And like I said, this is probably, well actually I don't think I said it, it's not actually that much work. That probably took like accumulated amount of actual work or labor side of it all probably took just under an hour. I will eventually replace this speedo cable because it is way too long and it's just ridiculously long, and I'm not really about ridiculous on my motorcycles, even if it is a crashed up pile of garbage. When it's not really a pile of garbage anymore, I probably shouldn't keep calling it that. But I'm not going to bother replacing that, I don't think, until I know exactly what I'm doing with the Dyna, because I still haven't decided if I'm going to customize it further or if I'm just going to ride it around as is for now and then eventually end up selling it. I haven't really made up my mind yet about that. Like the engine on this thing is basically brand new. It's only got 6,400 kilometers on the engine and stock compression, right? So it's a brand new Evo, which is a great bike to have for doing long distance rides, like, you know, or moto camping or whatever I might want to do on it. So I just have not made up my mind yet what I am going to do with it. And that's a lot of the reason how come I haven't bothered buying a bunch of different parts or modifying a bunch of stuff or bothered really caring too much about how it looks, because after it's safetied, I can do basically whatever I want with it without having to worry about it going through an inspection. And then, yeah, all of the work that I'm doing now, a lot of it probably won't end up even, you know, staying on the bike. Like I said before, it's not gonna be pretty, it's just gonna be done. And these blocks are definitely more pretty than any other part on the bike at this point. Even the new paint job is already screwed up. And that's why we painted it flat black. Because as soon as you have nice paint, you all of a sudden have to care. And whatever, as long as it runs properly and it's not going to kill you when you're going down the highway, That is mostly what I care about. So, like I always say, and if you don't want to hear me say it, then turn the video off now. But if you like what you see, or if you just like me, or even if you don't like me, but you like my bike, my shovelhead mostly, because that's my favorite, then like this video. You know what? You can like either of my bikes. If you like either of my bikes, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment down below, and yeah, hit that little notification bell if you want to be notified every time I put a new video out. And like always, I will catch you all on the flip side. Peace.
Back off a bit so I can make some calculations here while you're doing that.
Oh, stupid lamp.